Hey, this is Nick from Remedy667.com, the best place on the internet for spooky horror themed typefaces. And today we've got a special Horror Font Friday, first one of 2026. I don't know, I'm not really 100% sure what I'm going to do with it, but I've got this nice text up here. Splatter, which is from the trauma film Splatter University. Not what is going on in the background here. But let's go ahead and do this kind of in an old school way. A different type of component font. So this is the way that I probably would have done this a couple of years ago. Cough, cough, cough. Still a little under the weather from last week. This video is probably actually going to run a little bit longer just because of the process that we're going to be going through here. So the first thing we're going to want is the SPL. And these are going to be getting chopped way up. Normally I would be doing this with an iPad, and you know what? Maybe I'll do that. Alright, first things first. I'm gonna erase that line, cut that right there, and that right there. So basically, this type of component font is a little different than the kinds that I've been building, because the kinds that I've been doing in these Horror Font Friday segments have been pretty much just taking the letters and kind of carving pieces of them here and there. But what we're doing with this one, you can see, is we're making actual shapes. Post that in the front. All right, let's drop this down here. So cut that one there. Oh, and this is going to be weird. Did that cut enough? It did! Yay! Okay. So somehow lost the top of that L. All right, so delete. Now, these pieces actually will fit. Illustrator got a little mad at me there. And they don't need to be perfect. This A is actually going to get split into 3 pieces. the left, the right, and whoops, that's right. I have to cut that through. So connect these together. T's are also pretty self-explanatory. On group, I want those two grouped together. This one, I'm going to get two verticals from those are my vertical stems. Whoops. And my horizontals. This will all make sense in a momentarily. Just you wait. I think those were like that. Oh, I guess I can look at my reference up here. All right, so this one's going to get split up into 3 pieces. First one's going to be that loop, just like the P. Second one's going to be the vertical, and the third is going to be this extender piece. Group that one. Oh my gosh, that was so much work. Okay, splatter. So it doesn't really look like we did a whole lot, but what we did was we completely broke this into components. So now this style of component font, instead of dragging letters down and removing them from my reference, with this way, I'm actually going to duplicate pieces out of my reference to build out the characters that are currently missing. And these keep in mind, my vertical stems here are like total garbage. So this won't actually work as it's going to need modified quite a bit before it gets to a state where we can export it. So this video might run on a little long. I apologize, but you know what? You get what you pay for, and this is free. So sorry, not sorry. All right, so starting with the A, because there's not actually anything next to it, I'm going to close that off, and I dropped my horizontal bar a little bit, and we're coming in just a tiny bit on that side. Next, we're going to go right into the B. And I think I'm going to do that with, obviously, the P and the R. So I'm going to trim that right there, and this piece is going to get trimmed right there. And that is going to turn into our B. Is it starting to make sense how this works? This style of component letter form building. And then we just group that. C, not going to be the best looking C, but the O's are also going to be weird because we don't really have any curved characters except for this S. And it's already kind of a mess. So, reflect is under transform. Yes. So group, and then we'll mush that over a little bit. And we'll probably get our A. We're going to play with these angles a little bit. D is going to also come from the R, except this one is going to go up, and this part from the S is going to attach to it. So that goes away. And this is going to trim down way in there. Group that. Angle just goes just a little bit. And you know what? I'm actually going to condense that a little bit and give it a little more angle. So then the D, when it's alone, nope, that was too far. It was too far. That's good how it is. All right, let's take this E is going to be good. We're going to use that to make the F also, but we're not using the top one to make the F. We're actually going to bring the bottom one up and bring that down like we do. Now, the back of this already reflected that for the E. Ah. So we're going to go ahead and just smooth it down a little bit there. Group that. Now the G we would normally make from the C, so that's exactly what we're going to go ahead and do. What's going to be good for making this a G? Probably the top of the R here. And we'll just jagged it down so it kind of flows in. And same with that. Group that. And we're just going to get a little smaller. I would like it to curve down a little bit like that. Might have to use this. In my mind, I was like, teardrop. Pretty sure that's not what it's supposed to be. But we'll call them teardrops because that's funny. There's some very cold air coming in by my right arm. It's not fun. All right, so for an H, we need 2 big old vertical stems and a crossbar. And same issue with the F there, just in a little bit. Group those. Look at how that sits with the G. Pretty nice, huh? All right, for the I, let's just grab the P there. Fix that angle. J is also going to be the P. And that teardrop is going to have to go. The K is obviously from the R and using part of the L. Somebody's at the doorbell. Hopefully they're bringing us cool mail. It's actually probably just the doorbell complaining about how cold it is outside, because that's what it does. Thanks, Google. Don't tell the doorbell I said that. L. Group that. M. I think we're going to be good using the M with those 2 T's. And let's go ahead and use the A. That M is pretty brutal. We'll make use the H to make our N. I'm going to delete that middle part. I'm actually going to use this piece from the R. Normally I'd probably use that A, but I just used it in the N. Not that it matters, but I think that just looks really cool right there on that. And it needs to Get its angle and check a little bit. Now the O. We've been talking about how much of a pain in the butt the O is going to be for so long. So there's a couple ways we can make the O. We can make the O with these centers of the P here. Or we can make the O with the S somehow by deleting that middle part. And because those drips are vertical, I'm going to have to bring it like that. And I might have to redraw some of those. Oh, which is going to be tricky because because it was doubled in there in an annoying way. I think I might make this the O. I like how it's kind of big and wide like that. I think the Q will be a little less forgiving being that wide. So this is going to be the Q. Might also be the 0 if you guys feel like watching me draw numbers. I know I usually use the R, but I feel like it might just be a little too long. And I think that is a better cue. S. Look at that. It's getting easy now. Group that. I actually think I like that second T better, but cough, cough, cough. We will save that for a duplicate T or something else in the future. We'll see. Maybe we'll use it, maybe we won't. So now we're going to get to the U, which is going to be pretty easy. It's going to be using parts of the N with this center part from the, I think I grabbed that from the R. I was playing fast and loose. I didn't really pay very good attention to where I was actually taking pieces from. And it actually looks more like a V than a U. But I think if I shorten it a little bit, that's a little better. This A, this is going to become the actual V. And to do that, we are going to smooth out all these drips. Whoops. Group. I need to smooth this a little bit more. There. It just wasn't you enough. Didn't look anything like you. and I need that drips to be on that V. Our W, we're going to make it traditional style, old world. I think it should be a little thicker and shorter. Whoops. Group. And that's going to make our Z. We need to make an X with the R and a Y because I felt like it. We'll come back to that one. So there's the first part of our X. Just turns that in a little bit. Group that. The Z is pretty easy. I'm going to cut it there because I don't want that piece duplicating in a weird way. And I want this piece, ooh, that weird extension where it gets really thin. Where's my hand? Where it like tapers. I want that. I'm not convinced that it works, but I want it. And that's our Y. That gives us our initial splatter alphabet. And that would that take like a half an hour? Let's bring in some guides and make sure that everything actually sits on a good row. And for this level of testing, we like to use font self. And I like to put my guides on a separate layer. And make sure I name them baseline and cap height. And those are the only two I'm using here. All right, so you can see it started off kind of bad. This is going to be very jumpy with the baseline. Just want that to be a little higher. All right. Now I think would be a good time to start making some numbers. And I was going to load a document, but it doesn't seem to be wanting to load. I've done this almost enough that I kind of know how to just put them together. Whoa. Did the screen just get brighter? It's either loading or it's completely lost. All right, so these are going to turn out to be our numbers. While I glitched there a minute ago, probably, and while that was happening, what I was doing was I set up a just ran a quick import to see how off this was going to look, or how this would look, you know. And it's not too bad. It looks pretty bad, but it really just needs a lot of in fact, it just needs a lot of manual spacing, which isn't that bad. And that's kind of a normal thing, especially with a font like this. Like, everything's so like uneven and kind of all over the place. This is also the type of font that definitely benefits from having duplicate numbers and letters in its set. Group that. When I used to just build component style fonts like that all the time, that'd be like, all right, delete the line. There's the 3. I put a little bit more care into them these days. Sometimes I wonder if it's people notice or care. That's still a pretty gnarly looking 3. 4, we're just gonna cut it down. 5 is also going to be a cut down job. And that 5 looks great. Oh yeah. The 6 actually looks pretty good. All right, I do want to cut that out just because. Group and smooth that in a little bit. I don't know why I use the word smooth. That 8 almost looked like it could have been an ampersand. Group. All right, what else do we need to build here? All right, I believe where we go from here is to the period. And I'm going to use an eye to make that, and I'm going to duplicate an eye to make that. So the first one, just going to smooth that, and that's actually probably going to be our comma. I think I may have been complaining about it being cold here a bit ago, and I believe that beep was the doorbell again, asking to come inside. Alright, so for the top of my exclamation point, I'm actually smoothing the top and bottom a bit. That comes from a backwards S, so reflect. Okay. Making it one piece, and I'm actually not really paying too much attention to the way the curve is with this, but more just like what I think will work for the shape of a question mark. Because, buddy, it ain't this. Group. What else is there? There's the, now we have the ASCII tilde we've been doing. Ampersands, what were we building ampersands with? Threes and T's. We're gonna need the D, the E, the P, or the R. We'll just use the R. I said I need an ASCII tilde, right? That's can be made with that. Period. All right. So let's build some of these out. So the first one we are going to be putting together. Oof. I accidentally got that empty. So I'm going to delete those. Now it's black. I do that sometimes. As I was building it, I was new. Whoa. I knew I was doing something wrong. Cough. I want to transform, reflect my 3 and get its angle a little more that way. Swinging. This is actually really great with the T, this component style, because I can just kind of bend it at my will and make it do my bidding. So the S set needs a little bit. There we go. That's just going to be an F. And we'll group that. And I don't know what's going on with this R. I think it's... I brought it over here to be a thorn. So I had to remove that drip, or that tear. What was I calling? What was I calling those earlier? Teardrops. So those are some of that. Whoa! I'll transform, reflect this. And that angle needs to go a little bit this way and clean that there. That's our ASCII tilde. Let's bring the E over and the 5. And this is going to help us round out the rest of our just the few diacritic marks that we're going to need to make here. So we'll put 4 of those. First, we're going to delete that part of the 5, make it small. That becomes our cedilla. I don't know how to say that. I'm going to angle that tilde a little bit. Our dot accent, because you might as well. Just kidding. Umlaut. And our acute accent, those characters. Delete. I knew that was going to happen. Delete. All right, so there you have it. That is our alphabet with some numbers and some other interesting shapes. Let's go through and just run a quick import of this and show you just how sloppy it looks. All right. So as you can see here, there's a lot of weird stuff, and I'll show you kind of how you can fix it. I don't necessarily like fixing things in font self, because when I import again, it's gonna delete all my fixes. But so the heavy part of the O, I'm gonna bring in on that side. On the heavy side of those numbers, I want the S to be in a bunch. The T should come in a little bit on that side. I don't know why the V and the W have so much white space on the left. X has a lot on the right. Y on the left. Y. Z has a bunch on the left. Notice I brought in that R and that K a lot, because same with the C. That A a little bit. The E could probably come in a little bit more. Now see how this, it's still not there yet, but it looks a lot better than it did. I think that's supposed to be 5, not FNE. So I don't know. There's work to be done. But I think this put us in a pretty good starter spot. I think there's definitely also work to be done with to get my angles correct, because this is still kind of all over the place. Like look at saxophones, apostrophes. Let's throw in some apostrophes real quick. And the double. We'll rotate that a little bit. Group. Perfect. All right. I know it's not imported, but over looks really good. Jumped. I don't know if it's the U that's off or the J. That P needs to come in a little bit. The Q needs less space between the U. Oh, messy. All right. Anyway, so that was it. That's the font of the week for Horror Font Friday. We're not doing releases this month. I was originally planning on it and doing some sort of ad or something to see if I could get people interested in that. But then I was like, you know what? I think I need to work on this February font a little bit more and get that to a good spot. And then I'll start probably doing Friday releases again. But it's just too time consuming right now and there wasn't a lot of interest. So you may have to wait until October to see if some of these are become available. And even waiting a little bit longer will get them a lot more complete. So anyway, blah, 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 blah. I will see you next week. Sorry for wasting so much of your time. And I don't know. Go visit remedy667.com. Check out some of the Horror Font Friday stuff from last month that you missed, because it's all sold out now. And I will talk to you in the future. Bye.